Your Los Angeles Rams have brought back a running back from the Super Bowl 56 winning team. I love the signing. What does it mean for the Rams running back room? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley? And welcome to another edition of Locked On Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Your team every day. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. You might know me for covering the Lakers for SI, the Dodgers for Dodgers Nation. But I'm covering the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre, half, and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio network, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 8th season covering the team. The Matthew Stafford of my Stetson Bennett, the Travis Rogers. You can follow him on Twitter at Travis Rogers. Another reminder, too, if you wanted to watch the video version of the show, we're over on YouTube. So join the party, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, getting close to 7,000 subscribers. And let us know, what is your reaction to the Rams signing Sony Michel? On today's show, which Rams running back will be the odd man out? Why the Rams felt like they need to shake up the running back room. But first, the Rams have brought back old friend Sony Michel. It was first reported by Adam Schefter that the Rams have brought back Michel, who, of course, was a part of that 2021 Rams team that won the Super Bowl. He's back in that running back room. I love the signing. I think it makes a lot of sense. But, Travis, what is your reaction to Sony Michel being back in L.A.?
They needed to do it. It's as simple as that. This is something that they needed to do. I know that they have some options in that running back room that we'll talk about in a little bit, that you've got some younger players, maybe some guys that you just drafted, some guys that don't have a ton of experience. But here's what you know for sure that you have in that running back room coming into this season. Your best number one guy, your RB1, has 3 things that you can associate with him right out of the gate. He fumbles a lot, he gets hurt a lot, and sometimes he's got a bad attitude. It's not a guy that I want to throw all in on, right, with a guy like Cam Akers. When Cam Akers is good, he's really good. When Cam Akers is in the right headspace, he's the best running back on that team. But we've seen it. He gets hurt. He puts the ball on the ground. And last year, you had some sort of conflict with the coaching staff that resulted in him getting sent home. Sony Michel is none of those things. Sony Michel might not make a Pro Bowl. He's not going to tear up your fantasy league. But what he is he's going to pick up the right assignment. He's going to hold on to the ball. He's going to go the right way. He's going to do the things that you need him to do. And it's not just speculative. You know that he's going to do it because he did it with the Super Bowl winning team on the Rams just a couple of years ago. I really like adding him. It's a very nice security blanket with a guy that you know is going to do what he's supposed to do. He's a pro's pro.
No, great points across the board. He's a veteran, a trusted veteran. He's reliable. He knows Sean McVay's system. He knows the standard is the standard here. You know what you're going to get with Sony Michel. But I like how you brought up Cam Akers, because that's the first name that popped into my head when I read this headline. How does this impact him? You look at Cam Akers. He's a guy that, as you just mentioned, he's been volatile. He's had his ups and downs. Through the first 12 weeks of the season last year, he was averaging around 10 touches per game for a mere 32 yards. Week 13 on, averaged a touchdown per game, 4.9 yards per carry, had 50% of the rush yards coming after contact, and he was definitely a player. But that's kind of my first question, because there's a couple ways you can look at this as far as how it impacts Cam Akers, because there were some other running backs out there, right? The Ezekiel Elliott's, the Leonard Fournette's, the Dalvin Cooks, who won in more years. So this really tells me that he could be the feature back, and they are going in on him, but also it is some protection. It is a contingency plan, and it does bring up a lot of questions. Does Sean McVay like what he's seen from this running back room so far? Does he like the depth of the running backs? Are they going with a running back by committee approach? Are they convinced that, hey, maybe this team does have a chance to win this season? They do have a chance to make the playoffs. You do that by bringing in a veteran you can trust. Also, like you said, is Akers going to act up again? Is it going to protect him from that standpoint?
Well, I like what you said, right? That the standard is the standard. And let's be honest, Cam Akers has not met the standard as often as he has. That he is a guy that I don't know if you want him setting the tone for that room. I don't know if you want him to be the guy that everyone else is learning how to be a pro from. Now, hopefully the guy we saw towards the end of last season is the guy that we get all season long, because Cam Akers is the best running back on this team. But I think that I don't know if it's a big brother. I don't know if it's a good boss. I don't know what the analogy is exactly, D-Mac, but there's one of those things that when you got somebody else in the room that you know can do your job, maybe not quite as well as you can, but close enough that the boss is willing to say, look, dude, you can either do it my way or I'm going to have him do it. Your options are kind of limited right there. And I think that's what this is for Cam Akers. And I think it's a good opportunity for Sony Michel. He didn't play much last year for the Chargers. He wasn't used a whole hell of a lot. So now all of a sudden you got a place to put him. Look, he was really important to them winning the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. He wasn't a guy that is going to get MVP votes or anything like that, but he was also one of those guys you never had to worry about. And you can't say the same thing about Cam Akers. I really like having him back. Even if he doesn't touch the football a lot, his presence alone will make everybody stand up a little straighter.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like that meme, you versus the guy she told you not to worry about. It's like The Office. You got Jim and Roy going after Pam Beasley, and Roy has to be worried about Jim coming after his girl. Yeah, having the other guy around there to put the pressure on you, I agree. It definitely means something. I think for Cam Akers, just saying, hey, you're going to earn this position. We're not just going to give this to you. Also, if you look at it, even another angle, you could say, hey, what's the best way to get affordable running backs? You bring in another running back that can get yards, that can get carries, that hurts your value a little bit. Let's not forget, he is a restricted free agent. So I'm kind of mining here to see some other possibilities here too. But as far as what Sony Michel brings as a player, the things that I really like, power back, veteran presence, a good mentor to the younger guys, knows Sean McVay's system, knows what he expects. Also, dirt cheap. I mean, they've probably gone for the veteran minimum. There's a rumor that's a one-year deal. I think that's what you can expect. The veteran minimum, they probably gone for a Subway gift card, a bag of chips, or used pair of rollerblades, something like that. They didn't have to give up very much to get him. Also, he can block. This is a guy that, remember last year in 2021 when he had that blitz pickup against the Bucs and the guy just straight up spun? I mean, he can block, and we know you need to protect number 9. You need to keep him vertical at all costs. We also saw young running backs, Kyron Williams, guys like Zach Evans, rookie running backs, they don't like to block. They don't like to pick up blitzes, and we know he can do that. Also, Cam, he struggled early in the season last year with pass protection. I also kind of want to talk about what he did in 2021. You remember that season, Travis? There was that dark period, the 3-game losing streak. They lose to Tennessee. They lose to the Packers. They lose to the Niners. Then they win 5 of their last 6 games, with one of those games being by 3 points to the 49ers. Well, that all happened when he took over as the starting running back. I mean, those games, 21.5 carries for 90 yards, half a TD, average 1.6 receptions for 11 yards per game. That's over 100 yards of offense. I definitely think he played a big role in that season.
Yeah, and you're right. And while all of the let's call them soft skills, right? The leadership, all of these things, those are important. He can play. And going back to what you were talking about, this is where he's splitting time with other guys as well. Go back, Darrell Henderson was on the team at that time. And they were always trying to find the guy that could kind of be the spark. And they finally found it when Michel was the guy that was in that lineup every single day. You brought up another good point, too, aside from the Subway gift card, and always get the Fritos with the sandwich. That's just another topic.
That's facts.
Your point of he knows the system. Sean McVay's offense is complicated. Sean McVay's offense is a very specific sort of animal, and having to learn it from the ground up is a challenge. Coming in with a leg up the way that Michel is, knowing the vocabulary, knowing the terminology, knowing the schematics of what it is, will give him an advantage. To your point, he'll pick up the right block. The last thing that this team needs is, oh, we got a kid back there and he went left when he was supposed to go right. Well, now number 9's limping off the field and we get to see Stetson Bennett for the first time. That's the worst case scenario. Sony Michel's not going to have that happen.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you bring up the fact that he knows the system. He's adept in inside zone running, blocking, catch, checkdowns. Only issue I do have is what Sony Michel are we getting last year? Averaged less than 3 yards per carry at 2.9 yards, had 36 rushes for 106 yards, no touchdowns. Really couldn't hold down the spot with the Chargers as a backup running back. So are we getting Sony Michel? Are we getting Vizio Michel? Are we getting Sharp Michel, Panasonic Michel? I'm not sure which Michel we're going to get, but I think bottom line, it's a no risk, no downside move when you consider it's a veteran minimum. And yeah, I mean, look, this is a team that I think definitely needs that veteran presence. I definitely think Sean McVay is sending a message by this. We're going to talk about the message he is sending. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
All right, but first, D-Mac, let's talk about our fans at FanDuel, our good buddies at FanDuel. Baseball season, Doug's a baseball guy. I'm a baseball guy. Big win for our Dodgers last night. The season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. $1,000. You heard that right. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to join today. Here's some of the things that I always like to look at. I love future MVP odds. Go take a look at Freddie Freeman right now. They're getting shorter by the day. Freddie's knocking the cover off the ball, but take a look at some of that. Of course, Ohtani, you can get some MVP odds there. You can keep it all local. You can go a little bit bigger if you want. You can do all of this at FanDuel. So don't miss your chance to snag a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission.
And we're off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And a special shout out to our everyday listeners. We appreciate you. You can be an everyday listener too. Just listen to the show every single weekday. Go back and listen to the classic episodes. Go binge it. And also find us on YouTube. If you want to see the video version of the show, join the party. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Like we said, getting close to 7K followers. And let us know, why do you think they made the move for Sony Michel? Now, Travis, here in segment number 2, you wonder, why did they make this move? Why did you go out there and bring in Sony Michel, a veteran running back? I think really this all started a few weeks ago when they cut Tyon Evans. I mean, was this an indication that Sean McVay wasn't happy with this running back room? He wanted a veteran presence to probably push the young guys, to push Cam Akers. But what's your read on this situation?
Well, I think you put your finger on it, right? That whenever you have a group of guys that you get the chance to look at, and then you a couple of days later say, you know what, we're going to get rid of this one and bring in some new guys. That doesn't mean you loved what you just saw, right? That this is, if you're any of those guys in there, if you're Kyron Williams, if you're Zach Evans, if you're, Cam Akers, quite frankly, that they went and found a veteran running back, somebody that they know, somebody that they have a familiarity with. That's not good news for you. Right? That does not mean they love you. That does not mean that they're super high on you and they just want somebody else there to, watch you play. This is a situation where you better get your what together, because we just brought somebody in who, at least at, a baseline, will do what we need to do. Maybe it's not otherworldly, but he'll do what we need to do. If I'm every other guy in that running back room, I'm standing up a little straighter today.
Exactly. If you're Kyron Williams, if you're Zach Evans, you would happily take a season like Sony Michel had in 2021, where he had 845 yards, 128 yards receiving. He has been a productive back in this league, and those guys haven't proven they can be that. Now, I think one of the ways you could say, does this stunt the development of them? I mean, if he takes away carries from them and you don't have a good season, you go 7-10, you say, was it really worth it to bring in Sony Michel? I think the answer is yes to that, because I definitely think, as far as a culture builder, as far as a guy you can trust, he's going to be just that. But we also know, Travis, you're not going to carry 5 running backs, right? You're not going to carry 5 running backs in the NFL. They're going to carry 4 running backs like most NFL teams do. I think if you look at this running back room right now, I think you have to feel good about Cam Akers, of course, being a lock. I think Zach Evans is a lock when you consider that there's a high upside on him. We're going to talk about that potential in a little bit. And then I think it really comes down to Kyron Williams. I feel really good about. I think Sony Michel's a good chance, but I think Ronnie Rivers really is going to be the odd man out.
I think Rivers is probably on a different team by the time that the season comes around, and that's okay. I think the one that's really interesting to me is Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams was somebody that the Rams held in very high regard at the beginning of last season, somebody that they were planning on using, I think, a decent amount. He gets hurt literally at the very first moment of the very first game and misses the vast majority of the season. And again, you're talking about somebody coming back from injury, so take it for what it's worth. But when he did get his chance later in the season, it was a little underwhelming. Now they've had a chance to see him since then. They've had a chance to see him in OTAs. They'll get a chance to see him in training camp. But like we were just talking about, D-Mac, when they start bringing in older guys, now maybe it's bodies for camp, maybe it's this, that, and the next thing. But if I'm Kyron Williams, the bloom is kind of gone, right? That new car smell of, I think this is going to be really good. You better start to perform, or they're going to start thinking about doing other things.
Yeah, I think Kyron Williams is definitely a willing blocker, but he's also 5'9", right? He's not your typical build of a workhorse back. So that's why it really tells me that, hey, they're willing to give everyone a slice of the pie. They're willing to give everyone an opportunity to contribute if they can prove it. If you look at Kyron Williams' rookie season, played just 10 games, carried the ball 35 times. So he's still an unknown at this point. Ronnie Rivers, 9 carries, 21 yards in 8 games, but he did win over $514,000 in 3-card poker. So he was going to buy his mom a house, made more money there than he did his entire rookie season. So he should be set. So he should be fine, right?
No, look, anybody that's got good luck like Ronnie Rivers has, even if it doesn't work out at the Rams, I'm sure he'll have a chance somewhere else. Like, I think that the fact that we're able to rip off all these names, right? You're talking about Rivers, you're talking about Sony Michel, you're talking about Cam Akers, you're talking about Kyron Williams, you're talking about Zach Evans. This is the state of running backs in the modern NFL. Just keep throw another one at the wall, throw another one at the wall. And when you find one that works, keep using him right up until he doesn't, and then start throwing guys at the wall again. This isn't quarterbacks. This isn't left tackles. This isn't pass rushers. This isn't shut down corners where when you get one, you hold on to them because they're really hard to find. This is a position where there's an abundance of available players. And I think that's as much of a reflection of what this is than anything else.
Exactly. It's just a reflection of the current state of the running back in the National Football League. It's what we're seeing right here. But I do think, though, that they do have a plan for Sony Michel. I think they almost want to use him in that Malcolm Brown type role, a guy that, he probably has lost a couple ticks off his fastball, not as fast as he used to be, but that was never his game, right? It's about strength. It's about north and south running. He's a guy that has that strength. He can catch those checkdowns, and I think he could definitely have an impact on this team. So I definitely think
I like that you brought up Malcolm Brown, Doug, because I think that's a really, really good that's a very good comp. Just somebody that, look, you know what you're going to get, right? That this Todd Gurley was the star. Todd Gurley was the guy that was going to get you, 150 yards in total offense every single week. And he was the guy that was going to show up on SportsCenter, do the interview with Deion Sanders on NFL Network. But Malcolm Brown will get the ball in the goal line a bunch of times. When you had to do something really kind of down and dirty and all these things, Brown was the guy. If you had to play a game with Malcolm Brown back there, maybe you don't love it, but you can live with it along the way. I really like that comparison a lot.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's definitely part of the motivation. I do think at the end of the day, it really is to light a fire under Cam Akers, get these rookies ready to go. And two, one thing I want to mention before you go to our final segment, we know that they redshirt rookies a lot of the time, and we don't expect maybe Zach Evans. Is Sean McVay going to change his theory and the way he uses rookies, or is he going to redshirt him and go with a trusted piece like a Sony Michel? I think that makes the most sense. I think you also light a fire under Cam Akers. What does this do for Cam Akers? I wish we could ask him today how he's feeling about this signing, because if he's saying, no, not again, this again, maybe that's a possibility. But another question too, is there a river card and 3-card poker? I'm not even sure about that, because that'd be cool if he won on the river there. I don't know, Ronnie Rivers, but yeah, man.
I'd still be sitting at the table waiting for my next 2 cards. I have no idea what 3-card poker is. But I'm glad that Ronnie won. I'm glad that his mother got a house. But I don't know. I'd still be sitting there saying, hit me, or whatever you say in 3-card poker. I don't know.
Yeah, he got a house, but I don't think it's going to be whose house, Rams' house for him next season. Let's just be honest. But coming up here in our final segment, we're talking about Zach Evans, talk a little bit about Kyron Williams and the role these young running backs could play for this team. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams. Welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. And also a special shout out to our everyday listeners. You can be a member of that Everyday Listener Club too. Just listen every single day. Hit that subscribe button, and you're not going to miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. But here, Travis, in our final segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about Zach Evans, because I think we look at upside potential. When you look at the fact that a lot of mocks had him projected in the first round, and as we were talking about before the show, so was Spencer Rattler. So were a lot of guys that were projected in the first round. But it does say that he does have that potential, that talent to be a better back, a top 15 to 20 back in this league.
He does. So look, I'm of two minds with something like this. Kind of go back to what we were just talking about a second ago, which is you can find talent at running back in all sorts of places. You can find them at the top of the draft, like Saquon Barkley and Todd Gurley. You can find them as undrafted players, and all of a sudden guys have very effective NFL careers. The fact of the matter is, this guy can be mocked wherever he wants, right? That you can say he's got the first round grade here, or he's right here. Every single team in this league had 5 chances to take him and said, no, thank you, until the Rams finally took him in the 6th round. So there's that. There's also this idea of, is he a reliable guy? Can you make sure, is he going to do the right thing? I don't know. I like where he was picked, considering it's not, if it doesn't work out, it really doesn't cost you a whole lot. I like the potential, upside on what he may bring to your team. But I think that the fact that they brought Sony Michel in kind of tells you, and putting it together with what you said a second ago, maybe this is let's just kind of put him on the shelf and we'll see what it looks like a year from now. Maybe it's one of those situations. I don't know how many opportunities he's going to get, because if Akers is good, he's your man. If Michel makes the team, and I think that he probably does, he's your number 2. I just don't know how many carries that leaves for Evans or anybody else.
Yeah, no, you definitely get into a conversation where it's about, is there too many mouths to feed, right? And I think with Zach Evans, I was high on him. I want to see him get an opportunity. I want to see him spell Cam Akers and just see what he has. I mean, with the expectations for this season, why not see if you can get a young running back to pop? Like I mentioned earlier, Colin Cowherd said that a lot of scouts around the league, a lot of people around the league are saying that Zach Evans has enough talent to be a starter right now. And if you look at the tape, I mean, good burst, good speed, can run with power. He has that ability, that big play ability just to get around tacklers. He has that knack for just breaking tackles. There are some character issues too when it comes to Zach Evans. Of course, anytime you transfer schools, he kind of had a falling out there at TCU. He missed a state title game over cell phone usage. So maybe there's that. Maybe they want to see their character. Maybe that's another reason why they brought Sony Michel.
Well, look, let's kind of cut to this, right? The Rams are going to throw the ball first. The Rams are a passing team. The Rams have Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, and that's why they won the Super Bowl, because they have an elite quarterback, an elite wide receiver, and they have an offensive mind who likes to throw the ball. So the running game is always going to take a back seat. This is one of the refrains on the postgame show that I've been doing for as long as I have is, why don't they run the ball more? Why don't they try to set up the pass by running the ball more? If Sean McVay were going to do that, I think we would have seen it by now. So it comes down to what you just said. How many guys are we going to have back there, and how many touches are they going to get? One of the things that I thought that they had issues with was you've got Darrell Henderson, you've got Cam Akers, you've got Sony Michel, you've got Kyron, you've got all these players, and none of them, maybe with the exception of Akers, have been given a chance to kind of get going along the way. So, to your point, can you keep guys happy if you're not going to run it a ton to begin with, and then you're going to cut those running opportunities into thirds or maybe even into fourths, and then the attitude stuff comes in, then the ability to be a good teammate, to block, to catch the ball out of the backfield. All of those secondary and third level, fourth level things become more important than do you run the ball really well, because we already got a handful of guys that can do that, and we don't do that very much to begin with.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think it's a great point. You're always going to be pass first. I do think establishing the run again is going to be how you really unlock this offense to a point where you're scoring 30, 40 points that like we saw back in the Goff and Gurley era, using that play action pass. And I think, Zach Evans, he has the potential. He has the speed. And if he doesn't hit, he's a 6th-round pick that didn't hit. And hey, you don't really worry about it. But I also think that the Rams have started to learn that valuable lesson. You don't draft running backs in the 1st or 2nd round unless they're elite, unless they're game-changing special from every single angle, the Todd Gurley type. But unless it's that, you're fine with taking a scratch off on one of these guys. I do have some concerns about his off-the-field stuff, his character issues. I mean, at TCU, he indicated he was tired and couldn't take his usual workload. Then he goes to Ole Miss, 936 yards, 9 touchdowns, 144 carries in 12 games. LaDainian Tomlinson couldn't convince him to stay at TCU. So, I mean, we know running backs can be divas, wide receivers can be divas, but hey, I'll bet on the talent and I'll trust the Rams culture, right?
Yeah, the Rams don't do that, right? The Rams, you either do what we're asking you to do, you fit into the culture here, you're a part of what it is we're doing, the we, not me, the standard is the standard, be at your best when your best is required, all of the things that Sean McVay preaches. Guys that don't fall into that, they don't last. So if he's got that stuff figured out, great. Well, welcome to the team, and let's go play some football, and let's go try to win some games. If there are the things that you're mentioning, and that's still a part of him, it'll get fleshed out pretty quickly, because that's just not what he does. That's not what the Rams do. And if he thinks he's going to win a standoff, go ask Cam Akers how that goes. Go ask him how when you say, no, this is how I like it. Okay, cool. Enjoy your house, enjoy your apartment, enjoy going back to live with your roommates, because I don't care what you like. We're going to do it like this.
That's a great point. He has all the examples. He has all the incentive in the world to be on his best behavior. He also has 750,000 reasons to be on his best behavior, and he wants to stay in this league. We've seen guys come up that have character issues, and when they go to the NFL, they mature because they know it's now or never. Hopefully that's the case for Zach Evans, but hey, I'm excited. I'm intrigued by the talent. I mean, 6.5 yards per carry. That was the 10th highest in the FBS. So I definitely think it's going to be a major player, whether it be next year or this year. That's really the question. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. And let us know, what is your reaction to the Rams signing Sony Michel? Let us know. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And always, I'm joined by legendary Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house is Locked On Rams house?